with the children being children. She repeatedly called the police on the young people just outside having fun. Eventually, Susan Lorincz shot Ajika Owens through a closed-in locked door, killing her in front of her child. All of this played out in the documentary The Perfect Neighbor on Netflix. It bothered me so much, I posted about it on socials. One of my friends knows the producer of the film, and I'm talking with Elisa Payne this morning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be on the show to talk about our film and talk about Ajika's legacy.
I had such a visceral reaction to watching this. What drew you to Ajika's story?
Our director, Geeta Gondabir, and another producer, Nakan Kwantu, they're partners, they're life partners. Ajika was actually a friend of Nakan, our producers, who he was raised like a sister with. And so when she was killed, we got the call very early on. And as filmmakers, we have a few gifts to offer. And so we thought that we wanted to go down to Ocala, Florida, where it happened, and try to get news media to cover it and film and send clips to the news, because Susan was not arrested until 4 days later.
Right.
And we know that Ocala, Florida is the place where Trayvon Martin was brutally killed, and the killer, George Zimmerman, got off.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this case, we definitely did not want that to happen. And so we galvanized behind, Kim, her best friend, our family member, I consider them family too, and behind Pamela Diaz, her mother, and the children, to make sure that she was arrested. Because if you saw the film, you remember the police, when they went to her house after she brutally killed Ajika, they said, "You're detained, you're not being arrested."
And that's the part that was so hard for me to watch, as this woman was almost handled with kid gloves after she murdered a woman through a locked door in front of her kids.
Almost. People like to say a lot of times when they see this film, oh, the police were so good. There is a very low bar, clearly, for how law enforcement is supposed to treat Black people. Certainly, the police were polite, some of them were not. But at the end of the day, were they competent? Did they do their job? No, because a life was lost. And all throughout the process and in our film, you see that Susan weaponized her white privilege. They absolutely treated her with kid gloves. And she was allowed, when she was detained that first day, she gave them a key. She's like, oh, my cats are inside. I'm going to give you a key. Can you lock the door? Can you do this and you do that? That would have never happened if it was one of us, if it was a Black person. And, I'm not going to spoil the film, but there were so many points in it. And if your listeners see it, they will see how she just kept doing that repeatedly.
The documentary relies heavily on police body cam and surveillance footage, like you mentioned earlier. What were some of the challenges and emotional weight of telling the story with this footage? Because it almost made me feel like a voyeur. It was like I was watching it in real time or something.
Yeah, that was intentional. There's technical challenges to using police body camera footage. It's not a very advanced camera. So technically it was difficult, but emotionally, absolutely. We decided that we wanted to use only police body cam footage because we felt that it would be undeniable, right? If you see it from the perspective, nobody's acting, nobody's putting on airs except for Susan for the police, right? The neighborhood is just being themselves, then it would be undeniable that what she did was unjustified. Oftentimes, when we see victims who are people of color, they also end up being, villainized after a white person kills them. In this case, you get to see Ajika on camera. You see and you hear other people in the neighborhood saying that she was the person who confronted Susan Left about all of her terrible racist remarks, et cetera, and her antics, right? And so you see and you hear her say, I taught my children to be respectful. I went over there to talk to her. You see the police telling them, the kids, if something happens with her, instead of antagonizing her, go get an adult. And then you see that she's building a case of stand your ground because this footage goes back 2 years. And she clearly thought that she was going to get away with it by building that defense. There was a lot of tears every time we saw it, every time there was a edit, every time we were working on sound, et cetera. The first time we showed it at Sundance. And I remember some of the audience members laughing at points because the kids are so cute and funny.
Yeah.
And me saying, I have no laughs in me. But then I understood it because what we also did was show this beautiful, multiracial, diverse community that
Right.
took care of each other's kids, that lived together. And there was one dangerous outlier who was racist and hateful, and she had two guns and decided to use it.
Still talking with Elisa Payne, one of the producers of The Perfect Neighbor on Netflix. It's a documentary about Ajika Owens, who was unfortunately shot and killed through a locked door by one of her neighbors. This all happened in front of her children. Ultimately, this woman was arrested and is serving a 25-year sentence. How are the kids doing right now?
They're really courageous, right? We would like to think that children are 100% resilient. They are not. They're doing the best that they can. They're in therapy. First of all of the kids who are outside witness this, they have all been forever changed. But when it's your mother and you lose your mother and you're a young child, nobody, even the grandmothers or the fathers love, none of that can replace the motherly love. Ajika was the mother. She was the football mom. She was the cheer mom. She was full of faith. Everybody loved her. There's no replacing her. And they will also live with the trauma of feeling that at any moment something dangerous could happen where they won't be able to protect themselves or prevent it.
I'm so concerned for the children and their futures. Is there a way to donate to their college, their upkeep, something?
There is a GoFundMe for the family, and you can search that up. The thing about Pam, Ajika's mother, even though she says the children are the most courageous people, she actually is. When this happened, our director, Geeta, went to her and said, listen, we are going to make this film. We have this police body cam footage. We can shelf it. You know, when it was finally done and we showed her a cut, you could imagine that for her, the first time she was like ill seeing it.
Right.
That night, she went home and she prayed on it. And she came back and she said, I can be selfish and just never let this film have the light of day, or I can turn pain into purpose and try to help other people going through what I went through. When this happened, she had just quit her job to start living and doing the things on her bucket list. She had always wanted to become a flight attendant. So 6 months before, she quit her job so that she could become a flight attendant and see the world. And then she gets the call. When she gets the call, she's living in Georgia. She leaves her home, her friends, her new job that she just got that was paying lower than the job she had before, to move to Ocala, Florida, to have to funeralize her daughter and also to raise kids. Kima Robinson, who's one of our APs, is a great organizer and philanthropist, and the two of them together form Standing in the Gap Fund to support families that will go through this and hopefully try to affect change through policy. If you go to standingintthegapfund.org, you can see what they're doing.
Thank you so very much for having this conversation with me. After watching the documentary, I really needed this. I needed answers.
We understand how challenging it is. We really want you to watch because it's important to bear witness.
Yes.
The other thing is that we did a community music and her best friends, and they had a really visceral reaction to it. And I had a point, myself and Nakan, who were the two producers who showed it to them, were worried and really were asking ourselves whether or not we did the right thing. At the end of that screening, they all circled up and just thanked us for it because they were like, we want to make sure that this doesn't happen, but we also need people to see because it validates facts that we as Black people and other people who are allies know about how we are treated by law enforcement, how we are not regarded the same, the racism that exists that people try to pretend doesn't exist for us. I'm really grateful that you had me on. I'm really grateful that you watched. I hope that your listeners watch because it's really important, and we hope that that can make a change because by seeing the police footage, what you see was the best of America, which is a community that stands together and lives together in this great diverse neighborhood. And then you see the worst of America, what happens when you're fueled with hate, racism, and white supremacy.
Once again, thank you, Elisa Payne. The Perfect Neighbor is streaming now on Netflix.